Got back into the game, guys, and Maru, as I was saying, is doing an interesting iteration here. He went low ground supply depot, low ground barracks. Yeah. Usually when we say that, you could even default assume it must be 2 barracks or waiting on possibly a 3rd. But no, it's actually just a 1 racks. Actually, Gumiho does this quite a bit. If Björn was the guy who was always doing a 2 racks and Gumiho always did like a 1 racks in an odd position, Maru would flip-flop between the both, CC first, 1 racks expand, and a normal way, you name it. I mean, he definitely can do anything in the build order notebook, but yeah, what we're talking about is whether or not he's going to try and be super aggressive or the super turtley style that he definitely made famous and definitely perfected a couple of years back. And that is a very, very fast 3rd seed.
This is a super greedy opener right here by Maru. So he went depot into a bunch of Marines. Another depot, right? But he's mostly just adding on 3 command centers before any gas whatsoever.
Yeah.
This means that if Zerg decided to get aggressive, in any way, shape, or form, it would have been GG.
It's actually kind of insane. But I mean, we saw Kira do something similar, right? And he actually got away with, thought murder. And then Dark was able to bring it back by getting like every possible good outcome from then on. So I certainly believe in Reynor to do so, but I definitely think that Reynor's going to scout this eventually, of course, and then he's going to get a little smile, he's going to shake his head, and then he's going to get even more of a murderous intent than he started off with.
This is one of those build orders that would be horrible on the ladder, right? If you take this build order right here from Maru and you try to implement it in your own ladder games, you would probably lose about half the games by about minute 3. There's a lot of very cheesy Zergs out there, but if you know who your opponent is, and in this case, of course, that's Reynor, Reynor will pretty much always open up with the same strategy. Now, this may actually be a bit of a misread. He's currently making 8 additional Zerglings. He's not entirely sure what's happening inside of that base here off the Terran. Yeah. He really doesn't need additional links here, but he's expecting there's going to be some sort of aggressive follow-up. Now he's seen about 3 Marines? What's going on here?
Well, that's the thing, though, is that, again, if we're talking about ladder, the amount of follow-up is probably very limited even amongst the higher leagues. When you talk about professionals, what's going through Zerg's minds when they see that low ground barracks, especially with the Marine coming out, is that they don't know if it's a 3 racks follow-up. Only now does he actually see that a factory is on the way, and kind of a late factory. So was that like a 2nd factory? Well, actually, it's a 3rd, but it's because, we're just adding all the production right here, right now. We are going to get that mech game, and it is not going to be completely scouted by Reynor. But I do think that first factory, obviously it seems like the only factory to him, might have been a bit of a tell in the CC timing.
This is going to lead to a crazy mech army. So Maru has already gotten away with murder here. The scariest part of this game for Maru, at least in the first 10 minutes or so, is already done. He's managed to get away with a super greedy start. Now, I'm curious to see what the follow-up is really going to be. Will this just be...
What?
He's even faking
okay.
That has to be a fake.
Yeah, it's fake.
There's no way. But this is obviously limited information for Reynor. He can't really get the scout into the main base. He's seen the green light inside of that tech lab. So he knows that something's researching, and at this stage in the game, that would always be Stimpec. Now, this is funky, though. You have a mech build with triple CC. Nah, he's not going to see it. And about 8 Marines. And he's seen the green light. So you assume, well, certainly that it's not going to be Blue Flame Hellions with Mass Cyclone.
Yeah, no, he's I mean, 100% he has to be assuming 3 CC into a bunch of barracks.
Yes.
Right? So, he's not going to be attacked anytime soon or a lot. And that is true for both mech and bio. But obviously, finally sees something a little miss. But he, because I guess he hasn't seen the Hellions that much. Anyways, I was saying either way, you're not going to necessarily be like attacked with a lot. It's not like a 2-base all-in that you didn't expect. But the way that you handle the first 2 medevac drop versus suddenly Blue Flame Hellion Cyclone is obviously very different.
Now, Reynor is going for a quick Baneling Speed opener. Baneling Speed will certainly not be done in time, so his main defense is just going to be Zerglings and Queens, and then maybe a bunch of slow Banes. He's aiming for a quick roly-poly upgrade here. Now, he's gonna see that army here step onto the creep in just a moment. He's restarted the upgrade again. Reynor actually did see that it got cancelled for just a moment, which is a little bit strange, but did he really pick up on that? Because obviously there's about 1 million different things to manage at once, and suddenly, this is the army that shows up on creep. That is not what you've been expecting at all. And there's a 3rd command center on the back of this.
Yeah, exactly. Again, if this was 2 medevac drop, Queen Ling would have done it, but now the Lings absolutely have to get a surround, and the Banelings have to connect, but the Lings are actually on the other side of the field, which might be a brilliant maneuver here. Let's see how much they can get done, and whether or not Reynor can actually survive back at home.
Yeah, this is not something you're going to have a whole lot of practice against. Right now, though, his army here is at full power. That being said, the Zerg reinforcements are showing up, and it's clear that Maru has been distracted quite a bit with that Zergling run by. 5 SCVs go down. What really was supposed to be almost like a game-winning attack right here from Maru falls flat on its face.
Yeah, really nicely done by Reynor. Obviously having all of his queens together, actually finalizing some of those banelings, having the creep that actually didn't dissipate until the tail end of that fight. All good things, but then he also made sure not to get distracted himself trying to control too many things. He was focus firing with those queens on the Cyclones every single time, just like the Hellions weren't a threat to the queens, obviously, and they weren't looking to go a run by, which they might want to do because this forward aggression isn't quite working. And another Ling run by is going to try and get in. This time blocked, but still going to find some reinforcements in the 4th command center. That's a good scout and a bit of a delay on it as well.
Alrighty, so we have that Mass Cyclone Hellion style right here from Maru. We call this Battle Mech. It hasn't been super popular over the last couple of years, but obviously the Cyclone did get a complete rework, and it's a very different unit than it once used to be. Reynor is responding with Hydraling Bane, trying to get the wraparound right here on these units. Baneling speed is done. These Cyclones have nowhere to run.
Yeah, very nicely done. Obviously, oh geez, like this is actually a bit of a disaster because reinforcements coming in are not going to be surrounded at least. There is still more power here off of creep, but still, Maru definitely isn't getting the momentum. So disaster is too strong of a word because he is on 3 bases going on to 4, but he really isn't finding any trickery. Reynor, I think maybe for a little while had to suppress his drones, so maybe he's not like 90 drones, 6 bases, like a passive mech player, you'd be able to get away with. But he's really doing an excellent job, and hopefully this propels him into that, I would say mid-game, but obviously we're like 5 base versus 4 base.
Yeah.
Into the minute 10 in a better situation.
This has been a very strange start to a game of SC2, not what we consider to be the established standard at all. Now, Hydras are just about to come online with some decent upgrades here, and that's going to make the defense a lot easier for Reynor. Generally, Zergs will transition towards some sort of spellcaster here, but obviously the question for Reynor is, can you really afford, for example, an Infestation Pit? Do you want to dare go up to Hive here? Like, what exactly is the follow-up plan? As Maru is just pumping out, well, now we have finally a transition towards Siege Tanks, but up to this point, he's just been pumping out Cyclones.
Yeah, I was wondering if Reynor could actually try and attack. I mean, especially after a surround again, then obviously trying to counterattack immediately, but that can be kind of difficult to do because it really wasn't a perfect game. Again, it wasn't 90 drones. You realize it was really passive mech, and you can just do whatever you want. He does have to react to all these attacks and not let them snowball, but if he gets a surround, which he is once again trying to set up here, and then maybe he can actually go across the map while the tank count is still very low. The surround does not happen. Maru will keep plenty of the Cyclones and Hellion alive, and he's already well underway into that tank transition. I believe like 5 just popped. Planetaries formed. 5th base is on the way. Maru certainly has successfully gotten to that more late game of the mech, and I could definitely see spooky mech in the future.
Absolutely. Ghost will probably be on the horizon. What a cool way to open up here, though, for Maru, because normally, right, if you were to see this sort of opener from the Terran, and it doesn't get that tempo lead, it's very difficult for the Terran to actually stay in the game, because you're really trying to overwhelm the Zerg with attack after attack. But what Maru is doing is he's trading as efficiently as possible with his mechanical army, while actually trying to build up an economical advantage. So, in a way, it's the Terran player who's trying to swarm the swarm, which is a very strange situation to be in, and it may be difficult here for Reynor to get this read. Does he even know about all those bases up north?
I don't think he does, actually. He
doesn't even know about the 4th.
Yeah, well, I mean, he knew it was being built, right? But he's going to try and take the offensive hatchery almost, just steal the minerals and find out that the base is already there. So Maru's playing at a super fast speed. And one thing he was able to display in some of the Master Coliseum replays is that he actually can be extremely fast, not just that turtle style. He's just doing with Battle Mech at this point. Hydra's actually a little vulnerable right there, not the correct numbers, nothing else to protect them from the Blue Flame Hellions. And Reynor's supply is looking really poor. Maru's able to tank hop on the offensive as a mech player still maxing out and is already knocking on Reynor's 3rd base.
Now it's a push with Siege Tanks right here for the Terran. That being said, though, the tanks are pretty late on the siege up. Is there enough follow-up right here for the Zerg to clean all of these units up? The Queens have been pulled away from their hatcheries as well momentarily. Considering Reynor wasn't, or sorry, Maru wasn't sieged up there. I think this is the best fight that Reynor could have hoped for, but it's still not going great.
It's not pretty. It's just not a pretty game. Maru got away with such greed that even though a lot of that early pressure from the surprise Hellion Cyclone didn't really do very much and end the game, obviously, it still gave him the control that he has used to play one heck of a macro game. Reynor trying so desperately to hold on to this, realizing that the tanks are a little under-defended, but not having enough lings to actually jump on top of them, losing out on the creep spread, losing out on his queens, and that Viper is only just being made here.
Yeah, we have an attempt at a lurker transition, but I don't know if Reynor can really afford it at this point. He's got 90 workers, which normally is fantastic against Terran, but Maru's got 93. This is, in a way, it's unexplored territory, right? Like, this isn't really something we've seen from Terrans before, and this is clearly something that Maru has been cooking up over the last couple of months. He's been preparing for this tournament, and this is a strategy that Reynor has not got a lot of practice against.
You could actually look at that Cure Dark series in Atlanta in the semifinals, as Reynor definitely looks like he's about to tap out. He knows that it's not been a very pretty game for him, but you can look at that same series, even though it was bio, and kind of see the big differences, which was that Maru might have not conquered with that Hellion Cyclone, and his reinforcements were even cut off and whatnot, but he was so far ahead with the build and the macro, and Reynor still had to take so much into account that Reynor was still ultimately suppressed. He was actually almost always down in workers against the Terran, like, which is an insane concept. But what happened in that Cure Dark series is that Dark was able to get like a little bit and then counter, a little bit and then counter, a little bit and then counter, and really interrupted the Terran's flow. Reynor kind of had that happen with the Ling run-bys. It just wasn't consistent enough. They stopped, and then when they stopped for good.
Yeah. So the real kicker here for Maru is that he's got close to triple digits worth of workers. Yeah. A lot of the times we see these sort of openers being played off of like 75, maybe 80 workers, but Maru's got so much income that he can easily match the Zerg. And because of that, I mean, he is the one who can trade cost inefficiently. The resources lost are looking really good right now for the Terran. And Maru is trying to create a chokehold on the natural expansion right now of Reynor. This is not normally a spot you're in. I don't think he's going to let go, right? He's got these siege tanks in such a good spot. 3-3 is going to finish up in just a few seconds. He's aiming, he's aiming for the throat.
I mean, there's a couple of factors why Reynor hasn't tapped out, right? And one of them is probably disappointment. You know, he's like frustrated that this happened this way. Yeah. The other one is that he has spellcasters, so he wants to be able to use them and try and do that. Then the third one, I think, is honestly, until these Hellions reinforced, a tank-only reinforcement line from a mech player is actually extremely vulnerable. If you miscount how much Larva pops like 40 lings and your tanks get surrounded, you feel like an idiot. So I think Reynor really was hoping that would happen too. But Maru played every aspect of that with cohesion. I'm not going to say he played it perfectly because the Cyclone Hellion didn't actually, it got surrounded, right? Yeah. But it was cohesive. It worked with the rest of the plan of the build to do the greed, to do the macro, to be the Zerg in the ZVT here, just endless floods of units.
Yeah, so normally if we see Battle Mech, right, say it's like, well, Cyclone Hellion or Cyclone Hellion with Banshee support, if this push right here fails, Terran falls flat on his face for the rest of the game.
Absolutely.
He had so much economy already at that point. I think it was a massive misread as well from Reynor. Like, he found the 5th base when he was trying to take it, and he didn't even know about the Terran's 4th at that point. Yeah. Right? He probably knew that it was up and running. Maybe he assumed it was at the 3 o'clock or something, but that was a very tricky game right there from Maru, and I think it's something he's specifically prepared for this event.
Yeah, probably. And I'm sure he's going to have very, slight iterations on it for future Zergs that he can still bring out. Not always 3cc after the barracks, maybe after a legitimate factory. Again, he could do what Cure didn't go into bio after a very greedy opener. He could probably swap over like faster or slower into the tanks as well and change things up that way. So it's very cool to see Maru in top form. But this is where I'm like, oh no, okay, Reynor needs a day to rest, right? Like,
like you need to take a nap at the very least.
This is snowballing, and if this was the day of the tournament, I'd be very worried. But he does get to rest, and I don't want to give up on him in his best of 3, of course, but it does seem like it's just the off day for so many of these players, and the day performance really can't be understated. One of the criticisms that I received from some of the pro gamers when I was like, well, what do you think we should talk about more? And they're like, day-to-day changes. Like, the day of can be so different than the next day.
Are you saying pro gamers are humans?
I'm saying casters are sometimes wrong.
No. That first part I can agree with, but I don't think casters. No. No, you're absolutely right, though. Sometimes when you're just having an off day, right, maybe you just are jet lagged, maybe you slept like 2 hours less than you're used to, right? It's the little variance that can make a massive difference. And right now it's starting to snowball. You can see on the camera that Reynor has not got his regular confidence.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at, more so than even the results here. But we do have Game 2 underway now in Solaris. In the top right, he is the Red Terran, Maru.
And his opponent all the way in the opposite corner. Can he get it together? It's Reynor. Spoiler, Reynor 2-1.
Well, you got to believe in him, right? He is like one of the best comeback players in the scene. It is one of those things where it's either a nap, a day of rest, or it's an extended series. Like it's a best of 7, right? And
kind of need to get into that groove.
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
Right? You need to find your flow.
Yeah. So the other thing that could happen, obviously, is that Reynor opens up with something different himself, which is exactly what he's doing, and then he forces the momentum to be on his side. I'm not necessarily thinking, I don't think Reynor is thinking Maru's going to do the same thing, because that would be insane.
Yeah.
Right? But
This
Reynor
is a bit different, but yeah.
He might be looking for something just to start things off, to give him control, and maybe most importantly, a very thorough scout.
Absolutely. So it's a pull first right here from Reynor together with a quick gas geyser. Oh no, I don't like that barracks positioning at all. That one should certainly be on top of the ramp. I brought it up in the previous game. Reynor, 9 times out of 10, will open up hedge gas pool, but after that game number 1, apparently Reynor has decided, you know what? Terran here is playing a little too cheeky. I'm going to go ahead and go for a spawning pool first and a quick gas geyser too. Now, curious to see if it's just going to be 100 gas. Yeah, it will just be 100. He's going to get, I think, metabolic boost. No, he pulled 1 off. This could certainly be a bailing bust.
That would actually be very interesting. We did see Shin with some... that actually worked pretty freaking well. There's no walls.
You don't even need a bailing bust here. No, you just need a circling flood.
You actually are like waiting for the bailings to finish and like, oh, the door's open. Yeah, all right then. But no, I mean, a little bit of earlier speed action could, surprise Maru.
Gas is a bit funky here, no?
Well, Maru is not doing any scouting himself, so I know we're talking a lot about what Reynor could not or could do last game compared to this one. But
oh, it's a roach.
Oh, wow. I feel like, well, obviously they exist. Obviously they do well. But I feel like it's been a long time since I've seen the 2-base roach actually work. Because so many people were opening up Reapers and they're actually kind of good against it.
Yeah. You can slow down the roach attack so much, right? With just 3 Reapers, you just keep throwing the grenades. Maru is playing exceptionally greedy, though, because normally, right, to put it in perspective, we will see an SCV go across the map and then it gets followed by a Reaper. In this particular game, Maru is not scouting at all. In this particular series, he's not scouting at all.
Yeah.
So if Reynor manages to get across the map with like 7 roaches, more of a couple of them into Ravagers, and then, flood with Lynx, how in the world is Maru going to hold?
Yeah, I really like this choice from Reynor. If Maru continues to be greedy, even though it's a little less greedy than last game, boom, gotcha. If this actually is like a complete gamble of like, well, I got to give him momentum back, let's just freaking go. Fantastic. I think that's actually a great call. But then to give Maru some credit here, he should be wary of something like this. Reynor is not someone who's known for being literally only a macro Zerg. So I would imagine he's at least depending on 2 Howlings into 2 Cyclones to give him some start of the defense. But he really is playing greedy. I mean, these engineer
no wall at the top of the ramp actually
is insane.
Boggles my mind. Yeah, he just sent the SCV. The reason why he did it is because he sent the SCV ever so slightly late, and he's like, oh, I guess I'll just plant it right over here. He's gonna abandon the low ground that goes straight up towards the high ground and, well, give up those SCVs on the...
Still not a wall, though.
We need high ground vision of some sort. That Overlord is actually not close by. Well, I guess you can just walk your entire army up there. That works.
That was a really late supply deal. I mean, maybe didn't have minerals, but now going to try and body block with the SCVs, kind of working to a degree. Maru is going to be able to lose a lot of SCVs before he is officially out of this game. Really, more so, it's about killing all the units, which right now Reynor can't quite get to. Surrounds the Marines, but the SCV pool will protect the mech units. And the last Ravager going down, I think means there's there's now a controllable situation, right? You can use the chokes, you can wait for a couple more units, and the SCV hold position is going to be really good too. And there it is, there. The hold position comes into effect. It might just be barely enough. You can see it. Reynor knows he did not do enough damage to another greedy build of Maru.
Wow, beautiful hold right there from Maru, though. That was one of those situations where it can go terribly wrong if you don't control it perfectly. Maru backing up right there in between those structures of his and creating that choke point.
Yeah.
Hold position, having those Hellions fire from the back. I was with you. I thought Cyclones were going to be the go-to option there for sure, but those Hellions in the back were incredibly valuable.
Yeah, it is kind of tricky when you have so limited factory units, but obviously it's kind of both to help out against both, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, Lings are what's going to get into every nook and cranny. They're going to get the surrounds, and they're going to be the fastest reinforcements.
Those Hellions just roasted so many Zerglings.
Oh, the Hellions, yeah.
The kill count on them.
Yeah. And Maru played that so patiently, too. Again, like the lack of wall completely, because he wanted to use the choke, the hold position on the first 3 SCVs. He wanted to use the choke, the pulling back to the self-made choke, the hold position after attacking when he found that it was the best solution. I mean, that's proving the confidence right there in doing the build in the first place.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's a follow-up push right here from Reynor. So Reynor putting all of his eggs in one basket. He has decided that is all in. Well, the first wave of it didn't work out. I'm going to try and go for a second wave as well. Question is, does the young Italian have enough stuff right here to overwhelm the Terran player? Again, good choke point right here for the Terran for now. He can afford losing a lot of SCVs. This is essentially a push that Reynor has to win the game with. He doesn't have a lot of follow-up, only 26 drones. Yeah,
he actually got within like 2 or 3 workers of his Maru in the last push. But then with Maru 3CC, it just skyrocketed again. So Maru has, I mean, 10 plus workers to give, actually, like more like 20 plus, 16, 17 already going down. The numbers are starting to rise. The Roach is actually coming in after the Cyclones had given up some of their lives in the hold of the choke. Might actually be the ticket here. Reynor, through force of will and the unexpected second all-in, might have caught Maru too much by surprise.
Yeah, he was a little bit late right there on the SCV pool. He doesn't really need a lot of workers here, so Mules alone should be a-okay. I think ultimately Maru is going to be able to reinforce this decently well. Stimpack at this point is also done, but I guess there's only 2 Marines to stim.
And 1-1.
Oh my god. Yeah, these are the most well-upgraded 2 Marines in the world.
Oh, Jesus. This is actually an insane situation because you know what? The situation as far as the Zerg economy versus the Terran economy, it has happened hundreds of times before, but I don't think I've ever seen it with Stim and 1-1 done for the Terran.
Yeah, the follow-up pushes here from Maru are going to be dangerous, though, because Reynor just does not have any upgrades of his own. He is actually going to try and make a macro game out of this. He's decided that apparently winning with more units is not going to happen, but he needs to somehow, some way match the Terran's economy with those 3 additional mules. And those mules, they will account for a ton of mining.
Yes.
So, yeah, how many? We're already up to 38. Larva's, yeah, that's pretty good.
Larva's pretty good. It is, you know, when you just can go ahead and choose to do the other thing.
Look at that roller coaster of an income.
But then, of course, you got to give Terran some credit here. It's pretty freaking nice to produce both. All right, like Army and SCVs at almost the same time. Maru obviously isn't that rich. He does have to skip like a 3rd SCV every now and again, but he also has such a forward stance on the upgrades that he could forego upgrading for a little while and still be good, but he's not even going to do that. He is grabbing the armory. He is going to keep with the upgrade lead.
I just want to say I love the 7.5-minute Reaper. Like that
I love it.
Yeah.
I actually love it.
You never really see Reapers past the very first one, but this is actually a very good moment to get a bit of vision, because a scan is about, well, a lot of resources, right? You have to choose if you want to go for a mule or you want to go for a scan, and that Reaper is a lot cheaper. So Maru getting that scout off the 3rd hatchery, he now knows, hey, he's actually just trying to, play a macro game against me here. And well, I mean, a scan would have been much quicker though, right? He's already up to 53.
There's also that chance the Reaper scouts more than one base. So I legitimately, because so often you'll feel like the only thing you can do as a Terran who's been defending is to go for a Banshee. Yeah. And that's a big commitment.
Takes so long.
Yeah, just going for the Reaper makes so much more sense if it successfully gets across the map. Speaking of getting across the map, 2 medevacs immediately picked up again. Stim, combat shield, 1-1. Actually insane. +1 Carapace about 25 seconds away from finishing 2. That would have been so freaking helpful. But do these Marines finally get their time to shine on the offensive, and do they win the game?
Yeah, the strangest timing attack right here, but you can see the strength of those upgrades. Having the 1-1 and the combat shield, I mean, we see a 60 Marine drop all the time, right? Like, that is not a strange strat. He's actually just gonna sack all of the units. I don't know if I quite agree with that, because 2-2 is on the horizon as well. It's gonna make those units even more powerful, but...
I think it already did a lot of damage, right? All the response, all the, like, running in single file is really bad for the Zerg. So, and kudos to Reynor for focus firing as diligently as he did. On the medevacs.
Is misplaced too. Man, this is going from bad to worse.
It was a great sign for Shin, though.
Yeah, that's true. He just went for a bailing bust on the back of it.
Yeah. And legitimately, actually, that's a kind of a good point. Raynor's been experimenting with a lot of like 60-ish drone Ling Baneling attacks. Like that's what he was doing almost all the time versus Clem in the last 2 series that they've played. I might like it in this situation, not necessarily because I'm a real believer that it works strategically, but rather in a game that's already got such weird pacing, to make it even weirder.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Maru here decides to fire up the 4th command center as well. So that one is, all things considered, obviously a little late, but this is a very difficult game to read, right? Like, you can play 1,000 games of SC2 and you will not come across this particular situation very, very often at all.
Yeah.
And these guys have played tens of thousands of games.
Yeah.
So it becomes a bit of a guessing game. You have to make the right decision at this moment, and if you invest too much into economy, you may just end up falling behind. Second factory coming up. Okay, Maru is just preparing to play a long game.
I do think, even though moving on to the Zerg side of the map, and especially if they have really good creep spread, is scary, I do think this is one of those positions for a Terran where they say, oh yeah, I'm comfortable. Yep. I've got way superior upgrades. A single double drop made you panic like hell.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't done your signature stuff, which is run by me all the time. So this is my game to play around with. And obviously Maru especially, the later the game goes, he just becomes more intimidating. So Reynor definitely still on the comeback. His workers have never really truly been as impressively higher than Maru's as they should. Again, only by 2 at this point, which, I mean, they're both getting saturated, but regardless, Reynor, again, not getting to the destination as fast as he would want in both games, which is maxed out 6 bases, 80 drones, Hive technology.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He is several minutes behind at this point. And if you look at just the supply count, this doesn't really look that bad for the Zerg. But in the, well, other pillars of SC2, like, for example, upgrades and tech, he is not in a good position here whatsoever. Still an uphill battle, but this is, at the very least, a lot more manageable than it seemed, well, just about 5 minutes or so ago, right? He's got a good enough economy to keep going in this game. But if there's anybody comfortable playing a slow TVZ, at least from the Terran's point of view, I would say that's Maru, right? A lot of players are not really enjoying slowing down the game all too much. But we talked a little bit about it before these matches started, as we do have some nice target firing here by our Terran. Maru loved playing that passive style for a very long time, and he still mixes it in. So this is the perfect setup for exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, he could show off the speed that he was displaying versus Serral a couple of weeks ago, because he was playing as fast as, you know, we see Clem as the fastest player, but this isn't necessarily the one to do it, because even though I said he's probably feeling comfortable, again, it's really difficult to tell exactly the situation. You can't get into every hatchery and see the exact saturation of the minerals or the gas. You can't necessarily get the exact technology if you scan incorrectly. So Maru playing a very weird game in a more, you know, defensive style. We got the drops with the majority of the army staying at home. Makes a lot of sense, but also means that Reynor can also try and get to an equal point as far as the army supply and general supply. It's the bank that will be missing for him in a late game like this.
Yeah. That upgrade advantage is going to disappear though, right? Over the next couple of minutes. I mean, sure, right now Maru is significantly ahead in that department with 3-3 finishing up, but there are no +4/+4 upgrades in StarCraft 2, so you can't go any further than the upgrades that are finishing on the right side of your screens right now. Reynor, in the meantime, going into his own 3-3. Those are going to upgrade. Well, those upgrades are going to finish in maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes or so from now. Ultralisk Cavern coming up. I mean, tech-wise, he will be able to catch up, but yeah, the bank is going to be a big question.
I do think Maru is going to start to pile on the pressure. I mean, he's maxing out on, you know, not ghosts so far, but I'm sure we'll get there eventually. Yeah, there's the first ghost.
Yeah, it's mostly just been Link Bane, I guess, up to this point, right? So
yeah, for sure. Like, you actually don't want to go overboard on ghosts if they're not going for like a tier 3 unit. But those are the upgrades. Once again, displaying their effectiveness. 3-3 versus 2-2 underneath a handful of medevacs is very nice. But Yeah, you're right. The upgrades will equalize, the bases and the economy situation overall, I guess, will kind of equalize, but the bank is what's going to be missing. And Reynor has struggled to kill Maru. Every Zerg has struggled to kill Maru with like an 8,000 bank.
Right.
So to do so when you're on 2,000, or not even 2,100 in this game right now, obviously you have to be very careful, feeling that you can just throw wave after wave of Zerg, even though that's the playstyle that you've been designated as the Zerg player.
Yeah, this is not the type of game where Reynor can just roll down a planetary fortress, right? Like,
right.
He's not in a situation, well, maybe in a few minutes from now, but he's not in a situation where he can just freely throw away like 20+ banelings. He needs to be very cautious. Maru, though, playing this almost uncomfortably safe, right? Like, I'm almost wondering if he's giving the Zerg a bit too much wiggle room here.
Again, I think it's a very difficult game for both of them, even though Maru can look at some of the stats and feel comfortable. Actually pushing out against a guy who has recovered from the weird opener into being now able to do his Ling run buys, you know that is going to be a sore point. And they certainly are. Those are cracklings with +3 melee even just finishing now as some get into the main base because there was never a wall. So that's actually
Forgot about that part.
Quite a few SCVs killed, and they even stopped a lot of the extra production.
Maru also getting deflected at the front. Not a lot of creep on the right side of the map, but, well, if you look at the minimap right now, we're crossing about the halfway point on the other side. And you can certainly start creeping up this bottom section of the map too. Now we have Ultras coming up into somebody who's already into Liberator tech as well as Ghosts. How do you feel about that?
Well, one thing that Terran players love to do is be really obnoxious, so...
Every StarCraft player loves being obnoxious.
No, Zerg players are, you know, truly guiltless souls who have never done anything wrong in their life.
That's true.
But Ghost, for one thing, now it seems to be Mass Liberator.
Yep.
That seems to really be giving some Zerg some real difficulties. They might win, but they're going to be gritting their teeth the entire time.
There are a few Widow Mines set up, but not in this particular spot. Maru may want to move some of those over. This is a scary army over here at the front, but those Zergling run-bys are really starting to hurt. There's a lot of production over there. A couple of the Banelings do end up connecting here as well with the main army of our Terran. One of the hatcheries, though, finally falls in.
Oh gosh, that was like so many Marauders and Ghosts getting taken down as Maru was focusing elsewhere while he was actually being pulled in 3 different directions. 2 attacks of his own, and then trying to deal with the defense as well. Maru, I think he might have been right. Maybe missing his time to shine. Really, there was a time where there was less creep spread. There was, you know, Reynor still kind of uncomfortably choosing between army and drones. But to choose that right moment on the side of the Terran, it is extremely difficult. I didn't mean to downplay it. I meant to just highlight, like, Maru might feel okay, but he can't just win the game, and now he's losing it.
Yeah, he lost a lot of his production structures. So generally, Zergling's killing a bunch of barracks. Not that big of a deal, but Maru actually needs to remax here. Oh, we actually have chitinous plating. Oh no, coming up after so there's already like 6 Ultras out on the battlefield. Ultras without that upgrade just, well, take a lot of damage even from just the Marines. And Maru has got plenty of those, but this is starting to look a little worse for the Terran than it did at the start of this match.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. This is Reynor ripping him apart. The only thing that is concerning is that Reynor's gas bank is so low. So if he does overcommit with plateless Ultras, then that could be huge. That would be so bad. You know, a planetary fortress that has its upgrades and mass SCV repair into the Ghost coming in, that could have been a disaster, but Maru just simply does not have enough units, and the Ghosts have already used so much energy, apparently. The Ultras are going to be forced to flee. Again, they're really not even equipped to be doing what they are doing. Reynor is just feeling the momentum and doesn't want to let it go.
Yeah, I think it's important, though, for him to slow down a little bit. Maybe if chitinous plating was done, he could have continued going here, but you got to play into those, well, small mistakes that you make as well. The chitinous plating upgrade just makes the Ultras significantly more tanky, but ultimately that's also going to give Maru a lot of room to breathe here. So he's going back into that Ghost style. He's going back into as many Marines as possible, but he hasn't quite established a foothold once again. Widow Mines, okay, not getting the greatest of detonations.
Almost got one on the Terran, though. That would have been fun. The Ghosts are almost all going to be able to escape. Almost, though, but no repair or lift. I think he could have canceled that planetary, so missed opportunity. Yeah, 18 drones did go down.
Widow Mine drop in the top left-hand corner. This is a game of speed now, Zongdrup.
Yeah, it actually is, absolutely. And seriously, so Maru has actually said in interviews that he'll feel days where he just doesn't feel as fast. Like his hands do not listen to his brain. But then there's also maybe some rumors of him maybe getting like surgery to fix something. You know, it's the Korean Terran problem. My point is he seems to be really displaying a lot of really fast TVZ, the style that he reserved in his back pocket for the days he felt good, more often in the last few months. And when he is feeling it, he is amongst the best as far as being the multitasking, aggressive, speedy, skill check Terran. So we might be able to see that as things have once again settled on the supplies. And it is Reynor's bank that ends up being the concern, as it is dreadfully low and he's not maxed out as of yet.
Infestors right now are sharking around the map. There is obviously no Raven, not a lot of missile turrets, not even really that many command centers in the grand scheme of things. One fungal growth, and Reynor may just be able to get those ultras to close the distance. Still though, for now, Maru pre-splitting a lot of his units. I love that. The Zerglings once again rushing through the center of the map. In the bottom right, they do get scouted, but Maru, yeah, crossing his T's, dotting his I's here. This defense is looking a whole lot better now.
It does seem like he just simply persevered, as he is continuing to be maxed out despite the attempted run-bys still being annoying. And I think really, though, the run-bys have to open up more opportunities like this. The Infestor just popped up in the middle of the group. Like, what's up, guys?
I was here all along. Nice fungal, and yeah, he does kill a bunch of stuff, but Maru's supply count looking very healthy here compared to Reynor, who's, well, still at a worker lead at the very least. He's gonna try and take one of the bases here in the top section, but Maru is taking firm control, at least, of the middle of the map.
Yeah, the more that this game goes on, and Maru is the one that stays maxed out, ever-increasing quality of army as well with the Ghosts and Liberators, the more you think back to that missing chitinous plating. He definitely had momentum, and that absolutely adds a lot to an attack. Maybe he still gets stopped short by that planetary, but that would have been critical to continuing on there, and at least having a bank for this next stage, the 22-minute stage. As of right now, Reynor knows that Liberator is becoming an ever bigger problem, so he's going to grab a handful of Corruptors, but they're still tricky to use, as the Ghosts should be covering these Liberators. In this case, they aren't. Completely left alone.
This is also a difficult game for Maru to read, though, right? Because this has been extremely chaotic, and you don't really know exactly what's been going on ever since about minute 3. So guessing exactly how much money the Zerg has at this point is not easy. Does Reynor have a maxed out army here with like 3k in the bank, or are you actually slightly ahead economically? Well, it turns out it's that second option, but Reynor sure making it look like he's rich.
Yeah, he's kind of puffing up his chest here, right? Some great fungals on top of a lot of the army, and another fungal on the backside too. The problem is that the fungal might have decorated it all in green. None of the units actually died, and Reynor realizes that was not the fight despite the spells. The DPS wasn't there, there was no surround, there wasn't enough splash to follow up on, and he doesn't have the bank to make that mistake.
What an incredible game of StarCraft II. This is really good. Maru, though, ultimately seems to be coming out ahead here. He's tightening the noose. Reynor trying to, stay alive, but this has been a very difficult game for him, and he's been trying to make the best out of it, right? For a little bit there, it looked like he was coming back, but I think that this army here from Maru is going to be nearly impossible for him to stop.
Yeah, indeed. It's 40 army supply up. That is a very, very good fungal, and the ultras are getting nice, close, and comfy with a lot of those units, but the cloak up, as there is no overseer, is going to be a problem, and once again, not enough DPS post-fungal to get the kills. Reynor obviously displaying some world-class play here. I'm saying he's having an off day as if we're all like super disappointed in the kid. We're absolutely not. Showtime had his pop-off. Showtime just played spectacular. Maru's back to the form that we expected from him. But today is not Reynor's day to be #1 in the group.
No, and he is not going to be happy about it, and that's exactly why he wants to stay in this game for as long as possible. It's clear that Maru is also starting to feel, well, maybe some of that tiredness, right? This has been a very long day for both players, and I don't think Maru from, say, 11 a.m. would have taken 7 fungals in a row like that. But ultimately here, our Zerg just didn't have enough follow-up, so he's making more and more infestors. He's hoping, praying almost, that Terran is going to make another slip-up like that and that he can finally cross that distance. He's taking one of the bases up north once again, but it's a literal minefield over here at the bottom of the map.
You gotta respect Reynor for giving it a go. He does still have a lot of bases and, you know, a kind of consistent income. Maru is only so far ahead, I guess, when you consider what the map used to look like. It's still a bummer for Reynor, but now he's losing one of those critical bases that was giving consistent mining. But not being able to get over a 150 supply hump, as you know,
Yeah.
Terran is maxed out. I mean, that just feels terrible.
Absolutely. Yeah, a couple of the banelings right there got very ambitious. They decided to morph in within the Terran's vision. The only thing really lacking here for Maru is just knowledge of where those infestors are. The only way for Reynor to really get back into this is to fungal the entire Terran army and to get some sort of follow-up. But these scans, I love them. I think it's very clever from our Terran here. Make sure you're not going to be falling into that trap once again. And now the snipes are going down. We don't have, there you go, beautiful EMPs. We don't have anything else anymore, and there it is. It's a 2-0 win for Maru, but he had to fight for it.
It certainly did. Reynor doesn't look completely outclassed in any regard.
No.
This was